Gentlemen, welcome back to the shop in the Healing Bench +2 Anti-Fascism OCD. We had a proper poke at the pig here on this earthquake ratchet. Let's not devolve into histrionics pertaining to my conquest past. Yes, I'm not proud of it, but some of them you had to roll in flour to find the wet spot. We'll get this back together. But first, we got a little shop business to go through. We got the old... claw. Engage your safety squints, muchly requested. We'll just move that. I'm firing up the t-shirt cannon. We got some artwork from the Diode press. Selling you a t-shirt. And if you don't want to buy a t-shirt, fuck you then, you cheap cunt. I'll give you a t-shirt. So you can trust your legal tender, or you can trust your luck. Go ahead over to the Town Pump CNC. Ask for either a t-shirt or some of these beautiful prints. What Graham from the Diode press, handmade. He has got a video on how to make these. The guy's an artiste. Oh, the sweet, sweet acrid smell of hand-printed, one-of-a-kind, well, 25 of a kind artwork. If you've ever encountered the safety department bleeding for safety, we got to put some personal accountability back into safety. You dehumanize people when you rule lawyer them into submission, and this is just a wee kick at the darkness here. Be the goat, not the sheep. You know what I'm saying? When you train people to be sheep, that's when nobody speaks up, when the bridge is cracking all the fuck and traffic going underneath it and they're telling you to tension the rods again. Not good. I'm going to give these away. Give a whole whack load of t-shirts away. Also, if and you prefer, which of course I prefer, if you got legal tender to spare, go ahead and get you some over on the Teespring. Down below me in the doobly-doo is the link. I'm hoping you remember how to get this back together, because I don't. Now, the casement here being aluminum, there's a problem with that the ring gear is directly machined into, because this is aluminum, this is a sintered steel. So generally when you're shock loading these, like on a wheel hub or something like that on a piece of heavy equipment, generally you chunk out the ring gear, and that is what destroys the whole gear set. I'm going to remove the expired blue Loctite here with this male urethral expander, available at every homeless despot. It's kind of a heavy gauge, but I don't judge. Oh, don't Google it. For fuck's sakes, don't Google it. Speaking of afflictions of the dingus end, I was watching the TV the other day, and I had an epiphany. It occurred to me that the reason I don't care for TV, one, the commercials, I gotta watch Netflix or HBO or I cannot cotton to commercials. But it occurred to me that in general, by and large, people who make TV shows consider their audience complete fucking morons. And it kind of sticks in my craw. At least on YouTube, you can get different layers of abstraction. You know, you want to watch man-on-man action, MMA highlights. You know, that's pretty self-evident what's going on there. But there's also very high-level discussions and very pinpoint audiences, very small audiences, but you can have these big discussions you can't have on the TV, because the TV, I think everybody that produces TV programs considers that their audiences are fucking morons. Further to that, the reason I had that epiphany is because I was watching a documentary about Cuba. They had said that Cuba was discovered by so-and-so and such, and smallpox wiped out the population there. But the local native population gave, in exchange, gave tobacco and syphilis to the Europeans, which of course is completely, wholly false, because syphilis was around. There was an outbreak, a first outbreak noted by some French troops in the late 1400s. And of course, that's why we have wigs. The wigs came into fashion because all of the higher echelon, you know, the classy lassies and the higher ups were all, twiddling each other's dinguses, and they all had syphilis. They had fucking hair falls out, big swaths of skin and so forth falling all over the place. You got to hide that shit. You got to wear a wig. It comes into fashion. Everybody now, wearing wigs. One of the treatments for syphilis back in the day was mercury. So the syphilis itself, it comes from a really gross looking bacterium that's like a spiroclete, I believe they call it. And the only way to kill it, they didn't have antibiotics, of course. Well, they did in mushrooms, but it didn't. The half-life in your system didn't last long enough to flush anything out, and they hadn't discovered how to make antibiotics last in your system quite a bit longer. So what they did would they would treat it with mercury salts, highly toxic. So it's almost one of those cases where the cure is almost worse than the disease. But those ions, those metallic ions, brings us to our connections here. I don't have any Loctite, and I do have the super glue, but this kicks off. If you look at this schmoo here, it's super interesting. And you would think this hardens because of the air oxidizing it or whatever, but it's flange sealant. It's not the air at all, and it's not compression, it's not heat. What it is metallic ions, and generally copper metallic ions, that cause these to cross-link, this plastic polymer to cross-link. So if you ever use flange sealant and you use it on something plastic, it doesn't chooch. But the moment you put it on something metal, and depending on the metal, like on iron, it works fantastic. Aluminium, not so great. There's not too much copper in here. Copper, of course, any kind of bronze or brass, it works fantastic. It's because it needs those copper ions, those metallic ions, in order to chooch. Yeah, there you go. Syphilis. Who knew? Wait a second. Why does Uncle Bumblefuck know so much about venereal disease? No reason. No reason. What goes on in Vegas stays in Vegas. But some of that shit packs a fucking bag, partner. So be careful where you stick your dingus end. Oh, that's fucking crusty. Tap it, tap, tap. Part of the wear-in process. Now we see if she bites. The moment of truth. These things are real good at turning your knuckles into spattered schmoo. Half a turn, fart, let the smoke out. Contact. Ha! Fooled him again. Oh, ye of little faith. Oh, she's a little toit, mind. That'll wear in. We got the Glock magazine compound here, wear-in compound. We'll just, doesn't like that. See, the thing is, I had to splay that fork in order to properly diculate it, so that's what's... Come on, baby. You can do it. A liberal application of percussive maintenance never hurt nothing. Motor is a little stinky. It's funny, it's not even really trying. You see how soft this was. It got fuckulated every which words. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this up just with some filing. Open it up a little bit and yeah, see if that does it. Because I could take it back for warranty. It is within the 90 days. A little worse for the wearing if she survives this onslaught, however. It'll be official. She ain't teabag. Only got the one ball now. That's still enough to do the job, though. We're just trying to preload that little washer. Tamp, tamp, tamp. Fart Smeller in the commenters mentioned you got one of these Jesus clips, you're worried about losing it. You do it inside a plastic bag. I never had any luck with that, though. Tend to pass out before I finish the job. Ah, fucker. Always time to do it right the second time. That's some fine work. Worthy of my good pal, Clacksprung. That's butter. We're going to cursorily test this thing. Torque is a very simple concept. It's force times distance. However, there's a lot of obfuscation in its industry, tool industry especially. If you can't dazzle them with brilliance, you baffle them with bullshit. The thing is about measuring torque on fasteners. What you're worried about is not the proof load, but the clamping load. You're worried about clamping. And when you're torquing something, if there's any kind of burr or anything on the fastener, that changes the amount of clamping because you just changed the coefficient of friction. Well, you don't even want to measure torque, really. What you want to measure is clamping load. And the way you can measure clamping load is stretch, bolt stretch. So that is why when you do a head on an engine, it's super important. You always use bolt stretch or you use rotation, because the stretch is directly correlated. These threads don't change depending on how much you turn it. It has to move in that set distance, right? So the torque is kind of a secondary measurement that kind of roundabout sort of measures how much load you're putting on it, as long as there's nothing buggered up in the thread. So what we have here is a Cat 40 pull stud off the robot. Pretty good threads on that. And what we're going to do is we're going to measure with a torque wrench 50 pounds-feet, well, maybe 40, and then see if we can get this thing to move at all with the ratchet. The pull stud, oddball socket required for the flats, so we need to Chinesium. Hopefully it doesn't explode back into its component entities. A Chinesium adapter. And the other thing is torque, breakaway torque. So loosening torque is far less generally than tightening torque. So if you tighten something to 50 foot-pounds, you only need about 35 to break it free. And the reason for that is self-evident when you think of what a thread actually is. A thread is an inclined plane, a wedge, wrapped around a cylinder. Now you take a door wedge, you jam it in the door with a certain amount of force. In order to get that wedge out, it doesn't take as much because it wants to squirt itself out. So that is why breakaway torque is so, and that just goes to the obfuscation in the whole industry that they can say nut busting torque and so forth. Well, let me tell you, depending how long I wait, it doesn't take much torque at all to bust a nut. Cordact. Well, partner, that is fuck all in a big ship. Wow. Maybe the battery's dead? But I just charged that battery. I got the FAP off here. And it does exactly the same thing. I never even had this one apart. It's got to have something to do with the torque limiting brain boxery. That works just fine. That busted her. Strange. Too smart for its own good. Nothing for it then. We got to test the breakaway torque. So let's torque these bad mamma jammas up to 100. And let's see if the earthquake will break it free. No, the earthquake won't do it. Neither will the snap-on. And now we're at 60. 60. Nope. We're in striking range of being able to piss more torque than that. It's 40 foot-pounds. Though the shills in the know will be adamant. You still need more torque out of the tool. 40 foot-pounds. Fuck all in a big ship. Let's see if it'll break free here or if it'll stall out. Oh, there we go. 40 she done her. So let's go up to 50. All right, here's 50 foot-pounds. No, torque's out. Let's see if we can do her this way. So we're in the range of a M10, right? A 8.8 is 35 foot-pounds. So, you know, and that's clean. Is that clean or lubricant? No, that's just clean and dry. So you get any kind of schmoo on there, any kind of corrosion or anything, it just ain't going to do it. So that cottons to my notion that this complete BS that you're worried about the torque on these things. Torque on these is secondary because you develop it in your arm anyway. Oh, that did her. That did her if you jam her on. Or you could just simply put it on and turn it by hand to break her loose. We're back up to 60. Not even going to bother with it on. Won't do it at 60. Let's try the FAP off. Just because. You can see how much quicker, so much faster. And it is 14.4. I quoted it was 12 volts. It's an extra cell. Or is it? I don't know. We got to look at it. Bingo bango. Let's look at the fuel, because why not? We're going up to, let's go right to 80. No sense pussyfooting around, yeah? He says with no small sense of irony. Like, comparing potatoes to vodka, I got the half-inch fuel. It's the same head. Nominally different torque. Not even close. Oh, didn't do her. Let's try the FAP off. Fuck me, that's that's fast. Whoa. And that's the 3/8 snap-on. Wow. Well, now we got to have a look at this one. You might be paying for a little extra performance, which I don't mind doing, as long as I'm not paying strictly for the brand name. As I said previous, this thing costs you an arm and a dick. It's always pink tickling when you confirm your own biases. This thing, not the belle of the ball. We had her A part, we saw all the components. Figured she'd be good enough for the girls I go out with, and I stand by that. You can see she suffered quite a bit of abuse at my hand and still chooching. Maybe not the definitely not the fastest. Not the fastest. Not really the torquiest either. So clearly their test procedures or my test procedures are clearly not correct, because I'm not getting the numbers that the manufacturer is getting. But I stand by that. You know what? On a coupon, apparently, 99 doll hairs. Not a bad deal at all. So thanks for watching. Keep your dick in a vice. And yes, I will do this.